Well, a warm welcome to you once again to the program Transforming Lives One at a Time. We are coming to you from beautiful Tobago in the Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. On this program, we encourage persons to become the best versions of themselves, to maximize their potential, and of course, to pursue their dreams and aspirations. Well, on today's program, we speak with a very accomplished young man who has been doing just that. And he's here today to share with us on the segment, The Drive to Succeed. Son of the soil, hailing from lowlands in beautiful Tobago, Emile Abraham has been racing for the past 38 years. He has been racing as a professional for the past 17 years. He spent 14 years as a team manager and has been a US cycling certified coach for 3 years. 15 times national road champion, 2 times national time trial champion. Emile Abraham has garnered a long list of career highlights, including 7-time champion at the Tobago International Cycling Classic, Sportsman of the Year T&T by T-Talk in 2007, 7th in stages 1 and 6 Herald Sun Tour UCI-HC in 2008, 6th in stage 3 Tour de Georgia UCI-HC 2008, 10th place Philadelphia Cycling Classic UCI-HC2 2008, bronze medal B World Champions in Switzerland in 2003, silver medal Central American and Caribbean Games Puerto Rico 2010, silver medal Pan American Games in Brazil in 2007, silver medal champion Caribbean Championship 2013 and 2014, Tour of Trinidad and Tobago champion 2013, Tour de Quebec champion 2013, 8th in Pan American Games Toronto in 2015, first place USA Masters National Championship 2017, second place in 2018, first place Trinidad and Tobago National Road Championships 2019, and more accomplishments as time would not permit. The magnitude of achievement can be found on TCS Sports Foundation website. Emile, it's my esteemed pleasure to welcome you today to the program Transforming Lives One at a Time.
Thank you, Deanne. Good morning. Hello to all the viewers out there. And yeah, it's good to be on the show.
Yes, so glad having you. So tell us, what have you been up to lately? In what part of the world are you based now? And when will you be coming to Tobago to get some sun, and sea?
Well, actually, I was just there in January for just a few days to visit my parents and spend some time with my family. But I've been living in the USA, in Atlanta, Georgia, and really taking a step back from cycling a little bit and like just concentrating more on working. I work with UPS and concentrating more on my coaching, etc.
Right. Well, Emile, let's head down memory lane a bit as you tell us about your early years growing up in Tobago and what was your childhood experience like?
Well, I always say, in the last maybe 20 years, I've been living in America and like living in Europe and racing all around the world and stuff. And I always tell people I will not change my childhood, being born and grow up in Tobago, in a beautiful small island and country. I wouldn't change that for the world, because my experience growing up was fundamental in my growth as an athlete and as a person in general. And I just think it's something that I cherish a lot.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, when did you know that you wanted to become a professional cyclist, and how did that unfold for you? Just walk us through that.
Well, so my dad, back in the 50s or in the 60s, I think it was, or way back, obviously before I was born.
Way back, way back.
He did some racing, and then as well as some coaching, and then he got out of it, came to Tobago. He lived in Trinidad. He moved to Tobago and took over the business on Burnett Street that his dad had there, the Abraham stores,
Yes,
everybody might know of since it's been there for that long. And yeah, really got out of the sport for many, many years. Had Romeo, my brother, and myself. And then we became teenagers. And actually, I was 11. My brother was 14. He's 3 years older than I am. And there was a guy that my dad used to race with, Anthony Camasion. He wanted to bring cycling to Tobago because cycling was really huge in Trinidad, and cycling was non-existent in Tobago. So he called up my dad, knowing my dad, lived there and used to be in the sport, and he's like, "Look, I want to bring cycling to Tobago. Let's I'll bring some riders, some BMX riders from Trinidad, and we'll have some races and try to kickstart Tobago cycling." And my dad agreed, and I had no idea about it. My brother was at home. I was, I we lived in Lowlands at the time, and
right.
I was at my best friend's house, Delroy Andrews, and you know, just doing my usual every day. Riding with the other kids in the neighborhood. Just playing football, all that kind of stuff. And I came home, and as I came home, my dad was loading my brother's bike in the van, and I'm
Right.
like, where you guys going? And he was like, "We're gonna do a race. Do you want to go?" I was like, "Race? I mean, yeah, I'm all for it because I mean, it was instilled in me like probably since I was born, maybe, I don't know, but I was like, yeah, let's go. Jumped in the van, and these races were at Lambeau Beach, because the road was quiet. We could have closed the roads off, and basically we raced probably for about half a mile in distance on these BMX bikes on the road, and I got dead last in every single race simply because riding with people in the neighborhood, you kind of have the same type of bike, same gearing, that kind of stuff. But when
Yes,
you bring racing cyclists from Trinidad, they have a bigger gear, they go faster,
yes.
they're more, they've been training, that kind of stuff. So they all just rode away from me, and I mean, but uh, they saw a driving me that they were like, they still gave me 3 gold medals for the 3 races I did, for
Wow.
still being back there and like really spinning out because my gear was too small. I couldn't go any faster. And
Yes.
so there they left, they went back to Trinidad. My dad got a group of guys together, and we actually had at that time probably about 18 riders that we got from like schools, my brother's friends and stuff like that. And we had a really good group, and we started training together and all this kind of stuff. And as we got older, um, I used to play tennis. I used to be in coaching school with Bertil Sinclair. Dwight
Right.
York was still there at the time too, and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And I was a really good goalkeeper. And I ended up dropping, like, probably when I was about 15. I dropped the tennis because that was like the least best sport I was in, you could say. So
Okay.
it
Right.
came down to football and cycling. And it was a very tough decision. Mr. Bertil Sinclair, rest his soul, really begged us for me to stay in the coaching school and pursue football as a career. But we decided, since my dad was kind of more educated as well in cycling, and it was kind of more our thing. And I had talent because I started going to Trinidad and riding races and kind of winning and
Right.
podiums and all that kind of stuff in the BMX category. We decided, let's try the cycling. Let's pursue this and see where it goes. If it doesn't work out, maybe we go back to football, etc.
Right.
And that's where by that time I was like 15. I started racing the bigger bikes, the 10-speed bikes and so forth. And I started really excelling and moving up the ranks. And by the time I was 18 years old, I was practically almost dominant in racing with the senior category riders. So my first Tobago International Cycle Classic overall win was 18 years old, which is the first year as a senior cyclist, not being a junior. And then I took that first national of Trinidad and Tobago in the road event, and I won actually I won 7 consecutive national road championship titles, which no one has ever done in the
Wow.
history of Trinidad and Tobago to this day. And over the years, of course, ended up with 16 national championships in all on the road. Then you have the time trial, won 2 of those, etc., etc. But during this 15, when I was 15 years old, 16 years old, is when we really took the cycling seriously and
Yes.
decided, hey, let's pursue this. Let's try to make this something that I could pursue.
Yes. My question is, those days with the BMX bikes and when your dad would, because I could recall on the highway, your dad would always be, he's driving right behind you
Absolutely.
guys.
Yes.
I would
Well,
remember those
so
days.
so so that's kind of so we had this big group and we used to ride together and train together and all that kind of stuff. Um, as I got older and everybody got older and they weren't in school and all this kind of stuff, and people started making a life of themselves, they kind of faded away slowly but
Right.
surely. So 18 became 15, became 12, became 8, became 4, and including my brother. My brother ended up getting married at 20 years old and started his family and so forth. And it came down to the point where I was alone. And it didn't stop us. My dad was, I mean, without him, I wouldn't be here today.
Yes.
And he would go out. He bought a motorcycle because he couldn't keep up with me anymore. And so he bought this motorcycle, and he will go with me day in day out. I mean, like having to keep up with that motorcycle was like being with the best cyclists in the world.
Right.
And it just took me to that next level. And it also gave me the motivation, the company, and the desire to want to just keep going and keep excelling. And like, we would go to Caribbean islands and do tours, and I was unbeatable. Like if I put my bike on the line, I win. It didn't matter who was there, unless it was international pro riders that came down because they
Right.
were on a
Yes.
different level. But within the region, I was definitely the number one ranked rider in the circuit.
Wow. Well, let me just stop here to just say congratulations to you on
Thank you.
all the achievements thus far. And you never despise humble beginnings. Because
Yeah,
when you were riding that BMX bike, I am certain that you did not think that that
absolutely
one
not.
day you would have taken this international, you would have taken this
Right,
as a profession.
right. Well, I mean, like I was saying before, back in that 15, 16-year old, the reason why we stopped the football was for that particular reason, to try to pursue the cycling, to see where it would take me. And
Yes,
you know it was a dream to become a professional athlete, but to become that cyclist.
yes,
And as the years ticked on, the 16 years, the 17 years, the 18, 19, 20 was very fundamental in getting those results and keeping that motivation and drive to be able to keep pursuing the sport and moving on.
Yes, definitely. Well, Emil, throughout your outstanding career and journey, there must have been challenges along the way. Of course, sometimes you just hear of the success stories, but you don't get into some of the challenges, some of the hurdles that you would have had to overcome. I want us to
Yeah.
talk about some of those challenges and how you were able to navigate through these rough times.
Yeah, I think that as an athlete, failure is the number one fundamental aspect that one needs to accept and use it to grow your development in the future and not let it be a hurdle in progressing to where you want to be. So I always look, my philosophy is if something happens in life, it doesn't have to be sports, it doesn't have to be, it could be anything, your job, your family, your whatever. If something happens that you think is negative in a certain way, like
Yeah.
I always try to turn that into a positive, and not look at the negative, because
Okay.
for me, negative energy brings negative thoughts, negative um, actions. So
Right.
then once that negativity starts and you start focusing on that activity and bringing that to you, I think it causes a chain reaction that a lot of negativity starts happening, and there you start to go downhill. But if you take that negativity, it's easier said than done. But if you
Yes.
try to take that negativity and look and make some kind of positive out of it, and because I remember there's few occasions, like let's say for instance, one of the big disappointments, like you were asking, is Olympics. The one thing that I have never able to this day is ride an Olympic event. And
Okay.
it for me it is the biggest disappointment, because it's not that I wasn't capable of being in the Olympics and riding in the Olympics, but it was just the qualification status always kind of worked against me. And sometimes, in a race that I did the perfect training, I did the perfect race, and it
Right.
came down to the end, there was always like something that prevented me from being in the Olympics. Where I remember in Uruguay, I had a perfect race in the World Championships. It was a qualifying event. All I had to do was place in the top 15. I was right up there in the top 10, and we had to go around a roundabout. Boom! A guy made a bad, took a bad corner and took out my front wheel, and the wheel started going like this, hitting the brake. And I mean, at that point, you can't ride anymore.
Yeah.
And so that was one of my major disappointments. And
Right.
it was hard to overcome, because and being in the Olympics is something that every athlete
Of course, the
aspire.
ultimate.
Yeah, and so it was huge disappointment. And but I took it as, okay, maybe it wasn't meant to be, maybe
Okay.
it's supposed to be like for something better to come.
Right. Yes.
It was hard, but I focused on that. I put that in my mind, and I think positively. And then I remember going and doing some events internationally, and I think, and I won. And I don't know. I mean, no one can even really tell, like, if I had won or did better in that particular event, if it would have affected this. But to me, I looked at it as, well, this needed to happen in order for me to achieve this. And
Right.
so you just have to always, like, just pull positivity from
Yeah.
negativity.
Yes. Of
It
course.
Let's say for instance, another way of describing that, there's a lot of people who, you know in life, they have a colleague, a friend, or whatever, a family member. People in this day and age, they tend to always pick at negative things of a personality, which
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's something that, it's there, but then they don't look at the good things that the person might do or achieve, and so, but they dwell more on the negative. And
Correct.
for me, it's like, well, okay, this, everybody has their way, and if this is how they are, maybe, you can talk to them and try to help them in that. But look at the positive, look at the, things that they may do, I mean, so, it's just having that mentality and working
Yeah.
towards it is what I think helps a lot of people achieve what they want. Because disappointment is not about dwelling on that, it's about putting it behind you. You can't change the past, but you can
Yes.
change the future. And if you look forward, put the negativity and the bad, learn from it. I'm not saying forget about it. You have to
Of
learn
course.
from it, but you have to now try to decide, what do I have to do to not let it happen again? How do I change my racing tactic to try to avoid certain situations? Or
Yes.
how do I, if I didn't prepare in the right way and I had a bad race, how do I change my training regime to be able to have that better performance and then go to the next race and get that goal that I need?
Of course, definitely. And it's like sometimes when life throws you lemons, I mean, you already
And
have the
it's
lemons, you might
it's
as well
inevitable. It's
make
going to
some
happen. There
lemonade.
is absolutely no one in this world that will go through life without disappointments and
Yes,
some of that negativity coming their way. It's just a
certainly,
matter of how
definitely.
they take it in and how they um, uh, make it develop into something better for themselves.
Of course, of course. Well, Emile, at this time, we're going to take our first short break and we will be back. Viewers, stay with us. You're viewing Transforming Lives One at a Time. We are speaking with cyclist Emile Abraham. Stay with us.
If you're wondering where to find top-tier quality tiles and products to refurbish or renovate your wall, floor or pool, well, your worry is over. Come to D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center, Store Bay Local Road, opposite the Bonnecourt Primary School, Tobago, where you will find porcelain, mosaic and ceramic tiles of the highest quality guaranteed. D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center also stocks thinset, grout, tile cutters and yes, windows. Plus a friendly smile and service that's second to none awaits you. So forget the hassle and get all the quality tiles you need right here in Tobago at D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center. Call us today at 460-8802, 639-8281. Opens Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m.
Howling Graphic Enterprise, Storby Local Road, Crown Point, Tobago, for a variety of quality printing products, including banners, posters, jerseys, flyers, and more. Graduation packages, get customized grad bags, mugs, newspapers, and the list goes on. Powerlink Graphic Enterprise, open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. Call 269-6996. We create ideas that inspire. Hi, I am Deanne, host of Transforming Lives One at a Time, and I would like to introduce you to our brand new segment, Good Vibes, Good News. And this is where you have the opportunity to highlight your good news. You can send your 90 seconds video to our WhatsApp number 868-701-2099. That's 868-701-2099. Let's hear some of the good news that we never hear about. Good vibes, good news. Inspiring hope. Celebrating wins. Truly grateful. Welcome back, viewers. You're doing Transforming Lives One at a Time. My guest today, international cyclist Emile Abraham. Well, Emile, I want to bring into the mix your support system. You touched just a bit on it, but I want us to get a little more into it. In the early years of your career, and of course, throughout your journey, the individuals who really, really stuck with you and literally kept you going. When at times I am certain, well, I should ask, did you feel like giving up at times? Did it become
You
so
know, yeah,
overwhelming?
it's strange that you would ask that question because yes, even though there were times that I was having success, it was hard to, keep that motivation. And as you're asking me about that, it's like I have to touch on something like parents is absolutely fundamental that they support their children in stuff that they want to do. Now you have academics and then you have sports, um,
Yes,
and I think that they need to focus on academics and stay in school and study, and because in sports not everybody's going to have an afterlife in sports, depending on how they succeed and how they transition out of it. But
yeah,
if you have that background in academics, then you can always go and get a job, all that stuff, so you have a few years that you can focus on your sporting arena and
yes,
trying to accomplish your goals. If it doesn't succeed, you have something to fall back on. But
of course.
at the same time, there's a fine line where my dad used to push me a little too much. This is in the really early, before I actually started like winning, because he saw my talent and everything. And this
Yeah,
is when we kind of dropped the football, took the cycling seriously and all that stuff. And I was talking to my mom about this just the other day, actually. And he pushed me so much to train and and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to go hang out more with my friends and like,
yeah,
do other stuff. It was always
yes,
like cycling, cycling, cycling. And he used to push me a little too much, where I felt like I didn't want to do it anymore. So that is why
okay,
it's like it is important for a parent to support a child
yes,
in whether it's academics or sports to succeed. But you have to also give them a little bit of leeway to be able
yeah,
to like do other stuff too. So but then again, you don't want them going down the wrong path. So
right,
the parenting thing, and you see it lacking a lot these days, where parents don't give their kid enough support and
of
guidance, so they
course,
tend to more easily go in the wrong direction. So
yes,
you need to push them in that direction, but also be able to like manage how hard you push them in that
yeah,
direction, keep them on a straight line, right?
create a
And
balance.
so but yeah, but I because I love the sport and because I love cycling, I kind of kept going. And
Okay,
as I started getting stronger and winning races, it became a little bit easier for me to keep going.
right,
But but I would say only really in the early days of growth that I had those feelings. But once I started winning and got that taste of
yes,
victory, I mean, I gotta say it was all full gas from there. But you know, just having, because my family, like my mom, my dad, my brother, my cousins, my uncles, I mean, there was so many extended family. Of course,
yeah,
your mom and dad is kind of like your core, but there's
of
so
course,
many extended family that was so much behind me, that foundation of support was vital
yes,
in me having that success. And so you find like a lot of times now family is kind of a little bit more separated. They're not as unified as they used to be back in the day.
correct,
But I was lucky and blessed to be able to like have that family support, extended family support. And that, whether I went to live at my uncle's house in Santa Cruz, or in Woodbrook with my dad's twin brother Zach, and like all my cousins coming to the races every
yeah,
single time.
wow,
Go Emile, all those things were really motivational in my success, I think. And It's something that I think I was blessed with, and
Yeah.
I am very happy to have had that support.
Of course, that support is so very needed, because a lot of times you may have a child and they are very ambitious in they may be excelling in a particular area, but because they don't have that kind of push and that kind of support, sometimes a lot of them, as you rightfully
They
indicated,
lose the
fall
interest.
by the
Yes.
wayside when they could have reached so much further. Because
Right.
it was just a couple weeks ago, I was talking to a young lady, and she was really excellent in her time. And then I asked her, I said, "What happened?" She said
Right.
she just wasn't getting the support. But for today,
Exactly.
she would have definitely gone international. And as I spoke to her, you could hear
In
the,
her
the the
voice.
regret. You could hear in her voice. It's like, wow, I
Yeah.
wish I really had the support.
Correct. I mean, but then on the flip side of it, it really depends on the individual, right? Like some people, like maybe her, like that didn't really have that support, but still became successful just
Yes,
because they had that mindset.
correct.
They didn't need the support to be able to give them that drive. But there's that's like a different level of athlete right there.
Yeah,
I would say at least 80% or more of athletes need the support to be able to excel, whereas you have that selective few that could just do it on their own.
of course.
And you know, I don't know if I would have been one of those, but I had that support, so it
Yeah,
worked out for me.
very good. Well, Emile, I want us to talk about that transition when you left home, especially coming from a tiny island as Tobago, 116 square miles,
Right.
and you left home soil to venture into unfamiliar territories. What was that like? That integration into a new culture, the environment, even the weather. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, I would probably say that one of the biggest disadvantages of being from a small island nation, um, in sports is the ability to be able to excel. Now, in this day and age, you have the sport company, the government funding, the all that kind of stuff that really helps athletes be able to get the funding to be able to go international and you know compete at a big level. But for me, it was all family, friends, and local
Yeah,
businesses that saw my talent and wanted to help me. That helped me to get out there. Now, when I got out to, like, let's say racing in the US, South America, Europe, stuff like that, it was a huge culture shock,
yeah,
because the way of life here is way different. The level of competition is far beyond. So even though I was dominating in America and I come out and in the Caribbean and I come out here, whether it be Europe, US, South America, it's like it was a full step back. It was almost like going back to square one because now
yeah.
I'm struggling to finish races, whereas I'm
Right.
dominating in the Caribbean. So
Yes.
it was kind of like, whoa, like I'm actually not as good as I thought I was.
Right.
And so it gave me that extra drive again to be able to, like, okay, I conquered the Caribbean. Now I gotta conquer the world.
Yes.
And it was like starting all over again. But now I had international support from teams, from friends who would be able to take me to these races and like really help in my development. And it took more years than someone who would have grown up in this region to be able
Yes.
to support. So, in other words, my point is like, okay, if I was an American and I was born and grew up here with the talent that I had, I would have been subject to that type of racing at my 15, 16 years old when I started
Yes.
winning in Trinidad and the Caribbean. Okay, so what happens then is you have that international exposure, you have that level that you've been competing now at a very young age. Whereas I really started that at like my mid 20s, right? The early to
Okay.
mid 20s. And so I was already like a few years behind when it comes to international exposure. And I think that that made it a little bit more difficult for me because my professional career was now in my 30s rather than in my 20s.
Okay.
So
Got
that's
you.
kind of where being born and grew up in a small island
Yes.
really made it a little bit more delayed process, if you want
Of
to call it that,
course.
to be able to excel to the top. So, you know, if I had that from a young kid, I, you know, maybe I would have been able to excel faster, longer, reach to the top, you know, in a quicker timing. But you know, I mean, like I said before, you know, I still wouldn't change it. Like that is just one thing that I think that, you know, maybe if I could have changed um, something between my early teenage
Yes.
life
Yes.
to where I am or where I've succeeded to is maybe trying to get out here earlier. But then again, the financial aspect of it was really the the barrier that I had
Yes.
because it's so expensive
Of
to be able
course.
hotels, airfare. I mean, you know, it's not cheap, and that is why Trinidad and Tobago, thankfully, you know, came out with the sport company, and the government started putting more money into
Yes.
sports and stuff like that. And you know, I don't know if I had that opportunity, you know, how things would have been different. But I am
Right.
happy to see and I mean you can actually look and see the difference in athletics. Nicholas Paul, Just Phillip, you know, all these young, I mean,
Yes.
we have so many big stars now. You don't know if these guys could have been at the top of the world if they didn't have the funding, because then they would have
Of
been in my
course.
situation where they can't travel to the international races as much. They don't get that exposure as quickly.
Yes.
So I think it's really good that Trinidad saw the light and started supporting their athletes more. You know,
Yes.
it's just unfortunate for me in my time we didn't have that, but it's
Right.
good to see that for the younger athletes that they can get that opportunity to be able to like get what I didn't have. And that's why I do coaching. You know, I've done my own team for numerous years and try to help give that support to the younger riders, give them
Yes.
something I didn't have. Because now that you know, I have all this exposure, I have all this, you know, contacts with sponsors and like, you know, experience, I wanted to give back to the
Of
sport and
course.
to the youth to try to be able to accomplish what I didn't in the time that that
Yes.
you know, to be able to give them that exposure. So you know, I'll bring riders from the Caribbean and Trinidad up to the USA and give them that exposure. Even South Africa, I've had Colombians, Venezuelans, you know, a lot of people from all around the world. It didn't even have to be only from the Caribbean.
Right.
But you know, just try to have that platform to be able to like give the athlete a chance for international exposure.
Of course. So it's like passing on the baton
That's
because,
correct.
yeah, because you have been down the road, so you are in a much better position to offer that counseling and that guidance and to be able to
That's right.
give younger athletes that directive. And of course, we
Absolutely.
still have, in terms of challenges, in terms of facilities, sporting facilities that persons could really be able to, uh, to be able to practice because, as you
Right.
rightfully said, because of the length of time you had to stay here, you would have been much further ahead.
That's correct. Right.
Yes.
And
So,
like going back to Nicholas Paul, just Saint Philip, and these international cyclists that are excelling tremendously in the cycling world, without having that Couva International Velodrome, that's UCI standard, they can be in Trinidad and train when necessary
of
and
course,
have, because the transition, the G-force, the everything about the track, you can't ride at Arima or any of these other tracks that we have in Trinidad, leave that 400 or 500 meter track with, wider turns, longer straightaways, different
Yes.
transitions, all that stuff, and then go to international competition with a 250, 200 meter track, tighter turns, steeper bankings, all that kind of stuff, and expect that athlete to be able to perform as they should.
At maximum, of
So
course.
right. So by having that cycling velodrome in Arima, in Couver, definitely I know for a fact that helped these guys be able to like have that foundation to at least start in Trinidad and then move on, so that when they go outside, it's not like a whole, culture shock, cycling shock, track shock,
Right.
to be able to like make it up there.
Yes. Well, Emile, for persons viewing right now, especially our youth population in Trinidad and Tobago, and of course the Caribbean, you are certainly a great inspiration. And from our conversation, one thing is clear: it doesn't matter where you originate from, you can excel once you put your mind to it and you put in the hard work. Let's talk about that, just weighing on that, putting in the work to get the desired end results.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, you know, what you put in is what you get out. Like, you cannot train half-heartedly and expect to go and win competitions.
Right.
You have to have dedication. You have to put in the hard work. And a lot of the times, that's why an athlete gets so disappointed in events that they work months or years for, and don't get the results that they want, because
Yeah.
you put in that hard work, that dedication and stuff. But without that, you have to be focused. You have to know, okay, this is my goal, and it doesn't come overnight. So it takes years. Some would progress faster than others just because of the talent aspect of that particular sport, how quick they excel. But sometimes, you have an athlete in 5 years might be able to reach a world-class level. And then it might take another athlete at that same level, world class, that it might to take them 10 years or more to be
Yes.
able to get there. But because of the hard work, dedication, and consistent performances, that it helps them to be able to generate that ability to make it to the top. But you have to stay focused, and you cannot let the disappointments hinder the goal set by the individual.
Yes, certainly. Well, Emile, I tell you, the time is going quickly. I think I want to put a stop on that watch, but we've got to take another short break and we will be right back. Viewers, stay with us. We're coming back.
If you're wondering where to find top-tier quality tiles and products to refurbish or renovate your wall, floor, or pool, well, your worry is over. Come to D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center, Store Bay Local Road, opposite the Bonnecourt Primary School, Tobago, where you will find porcelain, mosaic, and ceramic tiles of the highest quality guaranteed. D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center also stocks thinset, grout, tile cutters, and yes, windows. Plus, a friendly smile and service that's second to none awaits you. So forget the hassle and get all the quality tiles you need right here in Tobago at D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center. Call us today at 460-8802, 639-8281. Opens Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m.
Powerlink Graphic Enterprise, Storby Local Road, Crown Point, Tobago, for a variety of quality printing products, including banners, posters, jerseys, flyers, and more. Graduation packages, get customized grad bags, mugs, newspapers, and the list goes on. Powerlink Graphic Enterprise, open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. Call 269-6996. We create ideas that inspire. Welcome back, viewers. My guest today, international cyclist Emile Abraham. And I tell you, we have been talking about so much, and the conversation continues. Well, Emile, tell us, what has it been like for you representing your country on an international stage, and being an ambassador for your nation in the sporting arena, flying the flag of TNT high.
I for me it's always been an honor to be able to represent red, white, and black on the international stage. There is I can't tell you how many times people come to me and they will ask, where is Trinidad and Tobago? Like what is this? All that kind of stuff. And I'll have to explain to them it's the most beautiful place on earth, the land of carnival, sea, sand, and
Yeah,
sun, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh wow, we have to go there someday and stuff. And so, you know, that part of being an athlete and representing the country, apart from like winning and making the country proud and stuff like that, like
yes,
putting Trinidad and Tobago on the map and putting it
yes,
in people's eyes, is something that I enjoy doing too. Because when an athlete goes out there in the international world, they being an ambassador for the country, it's also sport tourism, right? And that is
yes, of
why
course.
sport TNT and the government, all that stuff, they're trying to not only develop the athletes and the sports, but it's also part of sport tourism. So
Yes,
for me, even before all of that started, I was already on that stage, helping with sport tourism for Trinidad and Tobago. And it's always been an honor for me flying my flag, red, white, and black, up to this day. I was just in Dubai in January representing Trinidad, and I won. And, I qualified for the World Championships. Whether or not I'll be able, to have the proper fitness to be able to go do that event, because, I'm working now, UPS, stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
I work 12 hours a day, and sometimes it's really been hard for me to be able to like train as much, so my fitness levels have been much lower than it
right.
should. But I have athletes that I coach, so maybe I will just go there as support staff for them, not to compete, but we can still
Right,
go and give them the opportunity to be able to race at that level.
of course. What would you say are some of the most important characteristics of a successful athlete for those up and coming?
I would say, one of the biggest things that I think an athlete can not do, or shouldn't do, is become cocky. It doesn't matter how good you are, not because you are excelling in a sport and becoming better than others, or
Yeah,
you are like in, everybody's like, Emile, whatever. I think you are still human. You are still that individual that we all started together, and you just had that talent and that ability to be able to become a professional top athlete.
yes,
And I think that one needs to stay grounded on earth and not get that swell-headed mentality that
yeah,
you start to look down on people. Oh, you're not as good as me, and blah blah blah.
right,
So I think a huge characteristic of an athlete is being able to not get that swell-headed egotistical attitude, to be able to start to talk about people and feel like you're the best thing out there. And I think I have been that humble person, because to this day, people I work with at UPS, no one knows my accomplishment, how famous I was, all that kind of stuff, because I don't talk about it really,
right.
and when they hear, they're like, oh my God, like you've done all these things and da, da,
Yeah,
da, da, and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, because, I mean, if you find out, I don't go both say, oh, I'm this big athlete and like,
yeah,
I've done this and that and that. If it comes up in conversation, I will mention it, but I don't just go out there like just, because people see these things, and
yes, of
what you
course.
portray yourself to be is how people will react and treat you as well. So, if you don't keep yourself level, then, you tend to either lose supporters, or people start to like, find your negativity and dwell on that to try to bring you down, because you're like,
Of course.
that kind of stuff. So be humble, do your thing, stay in your lane, if a vagrant on the street comes and talks to you, it'd be good. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. Like,
Yes.
not everybody has, the best life, or, have made the best of themselves. So, not because they didn't do what you did means that you should treat them differently.
Of course. And personally, for me, this is one, I mean, I've never told you, we've never really had a conversation, but I remember years ago working at Tobago Channel 5 as the news editor. And the reporters, the sport reporters, would always come in whenever Emile is in Tobago, and we would send them out to cover stories. They would
Yes.
always speak about your humility. And that was one thing I've always admired about you. You have stayed on the ground. It's not like, okay, Emile Abraham, so I can't speak to him. He's way up there. And that is so very significant. So you need to know that, because I mean that's from years ago. So I'm telling you today
Yeah.
on Transforming Lives One at a
Oh,
Time.
thank you. Yeah, it's good to know, and
Yes,
exactly, that's what I was saying just now. It's like, you treat people nice, you treat people good, they will in turn, treat you good. And you can actually, by doing that, you can actually gain more support, and
yes,
be in people's eyes as like this really great athlete who is humble and down to earth, easy to talk to, like to
that's
make people
right.
laugh and stuff like that. I mean, personalities are different. I mean, my own is all those things that I just said, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that you can't try, And so, but the main thing is just being on earth, being humble, getting the job done, representing your country, doing the best you can do. It's all that everybody asks for. And, just keep focused and keep driving.
Of course. Well, Emile, as you are very aware, we have many young persons that are very focused, they're goal oriented, they are passionate about making a meaningful contribution to their society and, of course, excelling. However, we do have a serious problem with many of our young people, especially our young men, who are just not taking life as seriously as they ought. They're not taking responsibility for their lives and their actions. We have some on the street corners. We have those hooked on alcohol and drugs. We have them in the prison cells. I mean, we have to talk about it because it's an issue. I want you to give a word of advice to these young people that are literally destroying their future.
Well, you know, I think it starts with social media and, all that, I going back to if like our days in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, even before social media and the internet really blew up. There was not a lot of outside,
Influences.
how should I put it?
Influences.
Outside interference in
Yes,
what how you think and all that kind of stuff. And I think also parenting these days are, I think a lot of it is, when we were young, our parents used to discipline us. And I think
yes,
that, you now grow up and you have your kids and you think, oh, I don't want to be like my parents and discipline them and stuff.
correct.
However, on the contrary, that discipline is what made us who we are today. And you would hear many, many, many people in our generation will say, "Oh, these young kids, they're relentless and they're this and they're that and that." But
Yes,
it's our generation that didn't put the disciplinary actions in the kids growing up to keep them
correct.
in a straight line and off the streets and put in their work. You know what I mean? So
Yes,
again, as I said early in the show, like there is a line, right? Like you can't over push, but you have to have some kind of discipline to be able to keep your child. And it's like a pet. if you don't train your dog or cat or whatever
Yeah.
as a puppy, let's say, and for a dog, yes, you can train them later, but it's always harder. You train them from a puppy, it's easier when they get as an adult to be able
Correct.
to like tell them this and that and coach them in the right way. So
Yes.
I think that just people need to be a little bit more disciplined with their kids in a good way to be able to keep them in the right track and be a role model for their kids,
Yes.
right? Like, not because I'm an athlete or athletes are the only role models, right? Every individual will have a role model, whether it's your child,
Yeah.
a coworker, or just a friend, right? Like, if you take your heart and help that person and guide them and show them the right way, but a lot of people think selfishly and like it's about me and I have to yes,
Yes.
of course you have to look out for your own good, but you also have to help and be that role model for the people around you to make the world a better place. Because if everybody's like only for themselves and don't provide some kind of support, as we've been talking about in this entire show, then
Yes.
everything starts falling apart. And that's what you
Of
see
course.
happening in this day and age. It's that unity. Because, like, for me growing up, when I was a youth, a real young kid, I can't tell you, like, every weekend, every single weekend, there was a huge family gathering, like aunts and uncles and cousins.
Yes.
We used to go to
Yes.
the beach, outings, and go by my grandmother's house and have big lunches. And you don't see that anymore. And I think that is a big, big, big part of why the world is like just going
Yes.
haywire, because you don't have that unity, you
Of
don't have
course.
that
Of course.
family support, like everybody just like being together. Everybody's just kind of like picking at each other all the time. And it's really hard. But I think if we could somehow find a way to unite again, I think it will help in just the community coming
Yes. Of
together and
course.
like being one again, and like everybody like kind of
Of
being
course.
where they need to be, really.
Certainly. Well, Emile, as we begin to wrap up the program, what is next for Emile Abraham?
Well, as I get older, it becomes harder for everything, right?
Yes.
But I'm just working a lot, and I'm just like still trying to do my coaching and provide that platform for athletes to be able to like gain the experience that I have had over the years. And I'm just here doing my thing, and I'm not racing as much as I was in the past, but that's part of life as you get older. And it is what it is. You can't stay young forever. But
Forever young.
just the mere fact that I'm still involved and I'm still doing all this stuff, I think is still within my heart, and like I still enjoy doing it. I still out there riding and stuff. But yeah, giving back to the sport in any way I can is always a top priority for me.
Right.
And I'm just like going with the flow, just living my life to the end.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Emile, let me give you closing comments at this time. Maybe reiterate something that you said earlier that is worth mentioning, or maybe just touch quickly on an area that we did not talk about today.
I would say that like we were just talking about, community, family, blood is thicker than water, and I know that family is not as close as they used to be, for whatever reason. I think if there is someone, a friend, a family member that you used to be close to, and for some reason you all drifted apart, I would say, like, really think about it. Like, is this worth it? Yeah, like, should I dwell on this for the rest of my life? Like,
Right.
why were we friends or good fam? Or like, how can I fix this? Like, let's try to unite again, and try to come together as a community, as a nation, and help one another, because I think it's the only way that we can really like try to change in this terrible direction that we are actually heading in. And
Yeah.
just reach out, like just say, hey, forgive me, or I forgive you. Let's
Right.
let's try to mend whatever we had in the past and move forward. Like the past is the past.
Of
Let's not
course.
do it again. Let's try to change this. But try to reconnect, and let's see how we can make the world a better place, because it starts with each and every one of us.
Certainly. Bring more love again. Bring that unity
Yes,
again.
absolutely.
Bring back that community spirit
Right.
once again. Bring back where we look out for each other once
That's right.
again. Well, Emile, let me thank you so much for guesting with me today on the program. It was indeed a
Thank you.
pleasure. And
It's
again,
my
I want to
pleasure.
congratulate you on all your outstanding achievements and, of course, for making Trinidad and Tobago proud. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And of course, when you come back to Tobago, maybe we'll have you on the program live. Emile Abraham on the
Absolutely.
program
It will be
live.
my pleasure. Thanks for having me on
Yes,
the show.
sir. Well, viewers, that's how we wrap things up for today. You have been viewing Transforming Lives one at a time. Ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and of course, Facebook. I am your host, Deanne McClutchy, always happy to be in your space. And as usual, I leave you with the definition of transformation, which is an internal shift that brings us into alignment with our fullest potential. Hey, we've got this. See you next time. I now leave you with beautiful sceneries from the gem we call Tobago.